All right, welcome tonight. I'm Stacy from the Iowa City Public Library, and this is our to-do apps and websites class. I'm going to go ahead and start by sharing my screen. Take me a second here. And would someone like to just confirm verbally that they can see it?
I can.
Thank you. And then here's your reminder that if you can mute yourself, that would cut down on background noise. So thank you for coming and being interested in the to-do list apps that are out there. But why are we even drawn to making lists? I thought we would just talk about that as an overarching idea first before we dig into the details of what these apps can do. So most of these reasons that I brainstormed are about accomplishing what you need to do and not forgetting anything. But remember that lists can also be about your happiness. It can be fun things to do, ways to take care of yourself, your future dreams, just as much as things like your current work, household, family management, groceries, and things like that. So as we go throughout this, think for yourself what makes for a useful list for you and how you would like it to make you feel. I have a quote from an article from PC Magazine about these kinds of apps that says, "A good to-do list will shape your day and help you focus on the things that are most important to you." How do you do that? Your tasks need to be concise and specific. You can't try to cram too much into one day. And you also need to make more than one list. So if every time you make a list, you end up feeling overwhelmed and guilty, you might try breaking it into separate lists or categories, setting priorities or a rough timeline, and then see if your workload can reasonably be done in that time. And then remember that surprises will always come up and a list is just a guide. Another thing that experts recommend is making sure your list items are at the right level. You want to put tasks on your list, not your goals or objectives. So becoming fluent in Arabic is a goal, not a task. The tasks could be purchase an Arabic English dictionary or search for an Arabic conversation group, things like that. It's okay in your list to use the goal as a heading, but you want to remember to break out little items that you can actually act on today. I also want to share with you a few productivity trends before we proceed. These might come up as you explore these kinds of apps. And if you haven't heard of them, you might be thrown off by the jargon. So the first one is getting things done. And this is usually abbreviated as GTD. This is an organizational method with millions of followers that was presented in David Allen's book from 2001, in which you write down all of your tasks in the same place to remove the pressure of remembering them and to give you better focus since you aren't worried that you'll forget something important. It also involves breaking tasks into smaller subtasks, setting deadlines, and doing periodic reviews of your whole system. And so most of the apps that I'll share with you tonight are built around these principles. So if you're interested, the library has this book and some other spin-offs written by the same author. At the bottom here is a Gantt chart. This is a visual timeline of when a task should be done and how the tasks are dependent on each other. This is mostly used in large-scale project management for business purposes, but you might find it interesting. And while none of the apps I'm going to share offer this for free, some of them have paid versions with quote-unquote dependencies that would give you the same kind of feel. And if you like the idea of a chart like this, you can look up how to create your own in Excel, for example. This little tomato over to the right represents the Pomodoro technique, which I might be pronouncing incorrectly. This is a time management technique that was developed in the 80s, where you use a timer to work in 25-minute intervals and then take a short break in between. And that leads to improved focus during the work times. And they recommend starting by making a to-do today list and prioritize those tasks. And then it's a way for you to estimate the effort that the tasks will require, how much time. You make check marks on a sheet of paper to feel a sense of accomplishment. And then you can evaluate for the future whether you got things done in that time. Some of those principles will also kind of apply to the apps that I'm going to show you. If you choose so, a lot of them will allow you to still see your checked off items and have that sense of satisfaction. But if you start using a to-do app and still find it hard to even get started with it, looking into the Pomodoro technique might help you set a specific period of time where you will work hard to do your things. The final one is the Kanban board, which is a tool for workflow visualization. It's a Japanese word for signboard, and it started apparently as part of Toyota's production system. And it usually consists of at least 3 columns: a to-do column, in progress or doing or ongoing, and things that are done. You can also add other columns, such as things where you're waiting for someone outside of your group to give you materials or feedback, things like that. And this one has a backlog column as well. So some of the apps I'll show you are designed to accommodate this kind of column system, which you may like or you may not like. Any quick questions about the productivity trends before we press on? Good, because I told you we're going to be pressed for time. So next question is, why digital? So all of those trends I just shared could be applied to both paper-based and digital list making. And there is something to be said for a paper list, if that's how you're already doing things, since we know that the act of writing something down has an impact in our brains. So if that feels right to you, that's what you should do. But the main benefits to digital lists are always having the list with you if you're carrying a smartphone, never losing a piece of paper. There's a visual clarity of the uniform typing as opposed to your handwriting in different colors of pen or pencil or whatever. That might work better for some people's brains. These kinds of apps have built-in deadlines and reminders. Some have the ability to share a list live with others, plus extra features in some like integrating images, using voice memos to add things hands-free, and other perks like that. In addition to those features, here are some other considerations. Cost. So I'm only covering apps that are free or have a pretty robust free version. Many of these that I'm about to share with you, I'm going to share 8, have premium features that are only available if you pay a monthly fee, an annual fee, or some of them might have a one-time cost. But I think that you should be able to use them very well without having to pay anything. Another consideration, platforms. So is it important to you that you can access it from both your phone and a computer, or is just having it on your phone enough? If you pay attention while we go along, you'll see that some of them can be accessed on a computer, or you can look that up afterwards as well. Sharing is important to some people. Will you be sharing your grocery list with someone you live with so that you can know up to the second who has purchased the eggs or not? Will you be collaborating on a project like planning an event, working on projects in a club, things like that? Visual elements. People who are visually oriented might need color coding, which only some apps offer. But apparently some people out there set specific colors for their personal tasks versus work or family or club or hobbies, etc. And if adding a photo to a project or a task will make you more interested in doing it, then you should watch for those apps that have that feature. Finally, reminders. If you're deadline oriented, you might need to see things in due date order, and some of the apps can do that work for you. If you're forgetful, you might want notifications to pop up or red text to tell you that you're late on something. And if you use an online calendar to organize your life, you might want something that integrates with it. All right. Well, let's go ahead and I'll share several apps that are available for both Android and iOS devices. And as I said before, I hope you'll go easy on me because there are so many apps like this, as it turns out. And I was pretty ambitious in the amount I'm going to share with you. So I've looked at all of them over the past week, and as a result, they might be muddled in my head a little bit. So if you have a question, please do ask it. But if I'm not sure of the answer, I will take notes and I will let you know afterwards. If, for example, you want to know if a certain one can sync up with Google Calendar, I might have to look that up. Here we go. First of all, let's keep it simple. If your phone came with a note-taking app and you don't need a lot of bells and whistles, that might be all you need. So my experience is with Apple's iPhone Notes app, which lets me type paragraphs or simple lists or checklists. And it's handy for me to keep two main lists. I keep a shopping list and one that I've labeled could do, which is a psychological trick on myself since the words to do can feel too strong and I can feel bad if a lot of things build up in there and I don't get them done. You're welcome to use that trick if that helps you. Samsung phones come with a Notes app from Samsung that I wasn't able to demo myself, and I looked up these features. I think they're accurate, but I could be mistaken, but it looks really good. And then Android phones come with Google Keep loaded, and Keep is the final app that I will cover today. So we'll go into those details later. In the interest of keeping things simple, let's start with the apps that are geared toward grocery or shopping lists. And those are Our Groceries and AnyList. Our Groceries is a handy app that allows for sharing, saving recipes, and gives you control over how things show up in their lists. So they start you off with a shopping list, and then you can add other lists for yourself for free. So here you can see that my shopping list has 4 items in it. And if I tap on that, I can see my shopping list to the right. You can see my 4 items that I haven't purchased yet. The sweet potato is in this produce category, whereas the rest are uncategorized. I'll show you how I did that. And then you can see that I already picked up the asparagus, and it's in my crossed off section. Adding an item in Our Groceries is easy. So there's some predictive text. As I started to type the letter S, it showed me some options, but it's not comprehensive. So I started to type grapes and nothing came up, for example. Once you have added something, you can tap on an I guess I don't have a way to show you that. You can tap on this I next to an item and it'll show you the details. You can control the quantity by having fewer or more, and then you can choose if it goes into a category. The categories I think are useful because of how I move through the grocery store. So if I'm writing a handwritten grocery list, I try to get it roughly in order of how I'll go through the store so that I don't miss something and have to backtrack. And so you can replicate that experience here. You can choose that the sweet potatoes go in the produce category, and you also can customize the categories that you have in here to just the ones that you'll actually use. Let's see. Another nice thing about this one is that you can add a recipe feature. And so for this, I created a new recipe that I just called banana bread, and I added some items onto that list. And then if I decided I was going to bake banana bread, I could tap here on this add everything. Get that out of the way. add the recipe to my shopping list. And then they would all show up in my main list. And then finally, here's a little screen explaining how you can share this app with others. They have detailed instructions on their website about how that works. Basically, you would put the same email address in as someone else, and it would sync up your list. So for our groceries, let me just go back. Yes, you can share or collaborate. There is an extra cost to have images, but you know what? I know what a sweet potato looks like, so that's not super essential to me to see the picture of the sweet potato. It does not have built-in color coding, but for groceries or simple shopping lists, that doesn't seem quite as important. It doesn't have any deadlines, I don't believe, or due dates. And there are some paid features. If you get the paid version, you can scan a barcode. So like if there is a cereal that you liked, you could scan that barcode from the box and then that would show up on your list. The paid version also lets you add the photos and remove these ads that show up on it. But I would say this is a handy grocery list app. Another option for that is AnyList. This is what the home screen looks like on AnyList, and they assume that you'll at least want to do groceries, and so you can use their grocery list part without registering. When I went to add a second list, this Christmas gift list, they had me create a free account. But since they know you'll want grocery lists, they have some nice built-in features around theirs. They also have the store categories, and you can set up favorite food items that with a star. So if you always get milk, you can favorite that, and then it's fast to choose from later when you're making your next list. As you shop through a store, you can tap something to cross it off, and if you like to see the cross offs, you can leave it that way, or you can tap on this eyeball to make them disappear. And the next slide here, this is what adding an item looks like. So here again, I started typing in a food item and it had some predictive text for me. And once I clicked on that item, there were some details that you could control, but most of these are premium features. So choosing the store at which I like to buy broccoli is a premium feature. The price, I think, is also one. So you would probably not spend a lot of time making changes to the details about an item in this one. And then just like in our groceries, you can have favorite items that you buy a lot, and you can put them on your list really fast that way. You can also, before I move, you can also shift things around pretty well in this one. So you can drag things within their category around. You can also change the departments that they're in very easily just by clicking and dragging. Okay, now here's this other list that I made, the Christmas gift list. And I think it works in this app, but it's not perfect. So I made an item for each of the people that I'm buying, and then there's space to write a little note for each item, and that's where I have my little brainstorm about what I might buy them. So it ends up with a visual effect that works for me as I think about it, but there might be other apps that are better for something like that. And you can see that I already took care of Michael's gift and he is crossed off. And I just wanted to show you the settings screen here. It does have some nice options that you could change, the text size, whether you like things to be crossed off and how to do it, and some other things like that. This is also an app, well, both AnyList and our groceries are supposed to be compatible with voice commands. So if you set up your Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant to have this app as part of it, then you should be able to just tell it, you know, Alexa, add milk to the grocery list, something like that. So if that matters to you, then you can do that little bit of research, but it should work for both of these. So coming back to my little grid of qualities, collaboration, yes, you can share a particular list with someone, and then the list can be viewed and updated by multiple people at once with the changes showing up instantly. The other person would need to create their own AnyList account in order to do that. And they also allow you to send a copy of the list as an email or text message, or even print it out. As far as images go, the paid accounts can put in an image for the list item, but no grand image for the list itself. So like for the Christmas one, it would have been cute, right? If there was some like holiday kind of scene at the top of my screen, but that's not a feature in this one. Color coding, you can choose a color for each list. You'll see that I did that for the Christmas one. I changed it to green. So if you had 3 lists that had something to do with your family and other lists that were for work, that would help you sort out which is which as you looked at your overall screen. Deadlines, nope. There's a clock here, but that's just a way of showing you what you added the most recently, not about setting a due date or deadline. And then paid features are the item photos, filtering by store, assigning items to the stores, entering prices of things, and the ability to use it on a desktop or laptop computer. But this is a handy little app that you might like to try. Next is one called Remember the Milk. This may sound like a grocery app, but it is actually not very well suited for grocery lists. It's one of the oldest to-do list apps out there, and it's much better, I think, for things that you need to do as opposed to detailed checklists or places to brainstorm. And it's very much based on deadlines and collaboration with others. Using Remember the Milk requires creating a free account with your email address and setting up a username and password. So if that sounds like a pain, you can skip this one. And then they also start you off with a personal and a work list that comes automatically. I added a couple others here. I added a grocery list, and imagining that I was in a club, that would be a reasonable type of list to make. And from this home screen of all my tasks, this is the menu that shows up. So approaching this, you might like to go by your specific list and look at what are my personal things that I need to do, or what are my work things. Or you could approach it by day. So you could see everything together, just what I'm supposed to have done today, what I need to do tomorrow, etc. If you do look at all tasks, it does jumble together things from the different lists together. So that might either be useful for you to have an overview, or it might drive you nuts. So you've got lots of options with this one for how you approach it. Adding a task on here gives you lots of options from these icons. And so I did a bunch of screenshots showing what some of them do. So as I added this get a haircut task, if I tapped on this, it would lead me to setting a day for it. Tapping on this one is about repeating. So I wouldn't get a haircut every day, but if this was about, you know, getting exercise or remembering to do some standard work task, then that might be useful to set it. This one means that it's attached to a place. So you could have it set up to remind you as you approach a certain store to pick something up, or you know, or any other location-based prompt. This one is about putting it directly into one of your list categories that you made. So when you create the task, instead of just letting it go into the loose inbox, you can set it directly to go onto one of these categories. You also see it has these little shortcuts. So you could type in a hashtag or # to get that to show up. This one has a little up arrow, asterisk, things like that. You can, at this moment, set how long you think this task will take. So this kind of goes back to the Pomodoro tomato timer idea. If it helps you to organize yourself by thinking getting a haircut is going to take me 45 minutes or something like that, whereas making this phone call I need to do is going to take 5 minutes, this can be a way of setting your expectations about what you can get done in the moment. And then the little person icon means that you could affiliate someone else with this task or assign it to someone. So you'll see this isn't really about your grocery list. This is more about organizing your time and involving other people in what you're doing. I'll also mention that, let me go back to the screen. There's something called Smart Lists that sounds intriguing. And I didn't play with that because you have to have used the app for a while for it to learn some of your habits. But it described them as special lists that are created based on criteria that you define and that are automatically updated as your tasks change. So for instance, you could create a smart list that only shows tasks that are due in the upcoming month, tasks that you set that have no due date, things you completed in the past week, things with a high priority, things with time estimates of less than an hour, if you find yourself with some spare time and want to squeeze something in, or tasks that you shared with Bob, things like that. So if you built up enough tasks, it's a way of sort of doing a search and always seeing the current version of what fits that search. So collaboration, yes, you can share this with up to 2 people for free. Beyond 2 people, you would have to do their paid version. Images are not built in. If you do the paid version, you can attach files to tasks, but it's more like you would attach like a PDF attachment or something for work. It's less about a visual focus. Color coding is one of the paid features. Deadlines, yes, that is at the heart of this app. So if that matters to you, you might like this one. And then for paid features, it is $39.99 a year to be able to do subtasks. So if oil change, if I wanted to break that down into check my mileage, call the place to set an appointment, make myself a reminder to go the morning of, things like that, bring my extra set of keys, which I usually can remember if I'm getting an oil change, to leave with them, things like that. In order to break that down, you would have to be in the paid version of this one. As well as, let's see, using color tagging is a paid feature, advanced sorting, getting reminders on your mobile device, putting badges or widgets on your phone, syncing with Apple Watch or Microsoft Outlook. And then they also have 100 themes you can choose from in the paid version. You can work offline in the app, and they'll give you an unlimited storage of completed tasks. So if this one has been around the longest, they've had a lot of time to build up all of those features. And so you might appreciate its longevity and the detail of Remember the Milk. The next one I'll share is Todoist. This is a very popular app that the majority of people, when I pulled people that I knew to find out if anyone was using apps like this was the one that came up the most. And let's take a look at it. So this is my home screen. I can see what's in my inbox. So this is any loose tasks that I need to do. I've got 8 things there. I could look and see what I was supposed to do today or upcoming after today. And then I have projects that I've set up. So I only set up one so far. I called it house improvements, and I've got 5 things in there. And I just wanted to show you that this is kind of your goal. This is the reward you get when you have finished everything. My coworker Amanda says she's used Todoist for years, and so she also aims for this goal. She immediately puts any task that she creates, not in the inbox, but immediately into a project. And she has things like shopping, work, clubs that she's part of, church, family, whatever. So her goal is for her inbox to be at 0 all the time. Go to the next one here. So this is my inbox that I showed you. You can see that I have groceries, has 4 little subtasks here. Those are my items. And I set this one to be a high priority, so that's why that circle is red. And then I've got some other things here, and I set a due date for this movie. So it did that automatically for me as I typed that my movie was due in 2 days. It understood that I probably meant 2 days from now, and it suggested Wednesday when I did this on Monday, yesterday. So you could either find that very handy, or you could find that frustrating. Another time I tried typing that I had an event from 3 to 6, and it tried to make it March 6th. And then when I deleted that and tried typing it again, it was very pushy about trying to make it be at 3 o'clock instead of letting me just let it be loose. So you may or may not enjoy that, but the settings in here are very robust, and so you could tell it to stop trying to make things into dates for you. Let's see. And then as far as arranging the order of things, right? So this is my grocery list. This is not at all as advanced as those grocery apps that I showed you. There's no categories, and the controlling the order is a little bit hard in this one. So Amanda, my coworker, says she uses the time element to set things in a certain order. And she would also use these priorities because the top priorities will show up at the top of the list. But she says that even then, sometimes something will be sort of out of her control and she can't put it in exactly the order that she likes. So if that bothers you, you should dismiss this one. If you need to be able to control your order, this is maybe not the one for you. Okay, so here is the project that I made, the house improvements project. And as I set it up, it let me choose a color. This only shows up on that home screen as a dot. So it's not influencing any of these colors that I see. But again, if I had lots of projects and the dots next to them meant something to me, then that might help me be organized. As I set it up, I could choose if I was sharing it with someone, if it was falling under a bigger project or not, if I wanted it to show up at the top of my list as a favorite. And then I've got 2 view options. The list I didn't do because basically this is a list, this view here. So instead I chose the board view. And this is a way to achieve that Kanban principle, right? So these are 3 screenshots where I swiped left and right in order to see these different columns, but you can see how you could easily achieve that layout, and you can click and drag something from one column to the other very easily. It's not limited to 3 columns in the board view. You can add more or fewer. I named them to do, doing, and done. You could name them anything, and you wouldn't have to use the board view as the Kanban principle. You could just have, lots of little lists or categories that worked for you. I'll also mention that, let's see, within a project, you can choose to show completed tasks as opposed to letting them disappear when you finish them. If you're like me, I like to see those things that I completed instead of, if I tapped this check mark, it could just totally erase paint the living room and I wouldn't see it anymore. You might like having the things that you're done with disappear, you might not like it. So that's something to think about. And then, since this is one of the more popular apps right now, I just thought I'd show you that it has many, many settings available. One thing you can control here is how many emails they send you. So I set this up a couple weeks ago, and they started sending me daily emails telling me that I had 4 overdue tasks because I just made up some fake tasks. And so that became a real bummer for me. So if you like that idea of getting a daily email telling you whether you're doing well or not, then you might like that part of Todoist. Let's go back to the grid here. So collaboration, yes, you can share your list with someone. Images, no, there's nowhere to add an image. Color coding, yes, those were those dots next to the project on the home screen. And then the priorities also have colors attached. Red is the most urgent, orange, blue, and then everything else is white. Deadlines, yes, this is all about setting a date. But getting a reminder in a certain way, like this maybe, is just for premium members. And then there are paid features that I did not bother to write down separately, but Amanda, my coworker, does use the paid version. And I think one of the things she mentioned is that she can send an email to a specific email address, and it will add whatever she typed in that email as one of her tasks to do. So if that sounds intriguing to you, you could look into that as well. Okay, I'm actually doing not terrible on time, so thank you for bearing with me. I would have liked to pause and get questions as we go. I suppose we could pause right now. Are there any questions so far? Okay, great. We'll have time at the end for anything you need to ask. So I want to just very briefly share 2 apps that are really aimed at businesses, and that's Asana and Trello. I'll just briefly show you what they look like. So here's Asana. It's described as business-oriented or best suited for large teams who collaborate. And for this one, you do have to sign up with an email address, and they make a big show of asking you, what kind of work do you do? And when I put in my Gmail email address, they replied, is this really a work email address? So this is about getting things done. And you can get past that with not being a business, but you might feel weird about it. So here's a screenshot of a project that I made up, which is painting a room. And you can see my list of things that would need to be done. And this one, choose a color, has 2 subtasks. That's what that little icon means. And you can see by the importance they put on the second column of who it's assigned to, that this really is designed for collaborating. Also, I've got due date column and my priorities that I may have set. If I switch from that list view into the board view, let me show you where I did that. Yeah, it's up here in these tabs. So if I switch from list to board, you can also have these other views as well. This sort of begins to look a little bit like Pinterest. Like you can add pictures in here. And I added pictures of the paint colors that I was choosing from in this imaginary project of mine. And clicking on that task gives me space to add subtasks, assign those to people, add more attachments, make notes, which would matter if I was sharing this with someone else, things like that. And then tapping on these 3 dots brings you to some more features, some of which are premium. So this is the dependency thing that I mentioned before. That has a little icon that means it's a premium feature only. A complaint that I saw online is that some people find Asana, quote, too unstructured. I don't really see that, but if you like things to be somewhat unstructured, that might actually appeal to you, and you might want to look into this one further. So going back to its grid, collaboration, yes. Images, yes. Color coding, not really, that I found. Deadlines, yes. But yes, lots of paid features. Trello is one that seems similar to that to me. For Trello, you do have to set up an account to use it. It's a popular to-do list app and task management tool. And just like with Asana, when I set up my account, it asked me, what is your team named? And it asked me for a team type, and they were all types of businesses. So this one is also very business focused. And you'll notice right away, if you've been paying attention, that this is pretty much built around the Kanban board system. Yes, there's this brainstorm column, and then I've got to do, doing, and done. This is a template that they provided with some examples. Let's see here. So in a sample task that I added was buy a watch. So I was able to give this a cover image. It was actually kind of a cool feature that they have a stock image website integrated in. So all I did was search for the word watch, and then they gave me a bunch of options and I picked one. So that was very handy. I set this blue label for it, another way that you could organize things. I gave it a due date for me to purchase this watch. And I added description, so these are some notes to myself. And then choosing from the right, I added a checklist that shows up here of the things I should do. And I love how it shows my 25% progress so far in my checklist. So this is Trello. Would this be overkill for most people? Yes, this would be maybe a little crazy to put your grocery list in here. But if you're very visually oriented, or if you enjoy spending lots of time within your system, it could be really fun. It's a pretty looking system, I think. Coming back to the grid for this one, collaboration, yes. Lots of images. Color coding, yes. Plus, it has a colorblind friendly mode. I didn't click on that to see what it does, but that was interesting. It also has the deadlines. It also has paid features. So that's Trello. Now I'm down to my last two. So Google has two free services that you could use for your to-do lists. And so as long as you have a Gmail or Google account, you could use either or both of these. And it's Google Tasks and Google Keep. And if we were in person, I would ask you now if anyone has used any of these already. And you're welcome to pipe up if you've already used one of these. Yeah, that's fine. The reason I ask is because the icons show up right next to Gmail. And since a lot of people have Gmail, you might have just accidentally clicked on one of these icons before. But Google offers two things. So how will you decide between them? Let me give you just a quick overview and then I'll show you both. So tasks, I would say, is very simple and it is not image-based. It's really just about text lists. Whereas Keep is very visual, very attractive, I think. Tasks, I think, would be suitable for a to-do list. Whereas Keep, you could use more like Pinterest or as a mood board or for inspiration for yourself. So here, I'll show you. Let's start with tasks, the one that's more simple and text-based. This can be used as its own app on your phone or mobile device. It also can be used as part of Gmail or Google Calendar. And so on this screen, I'm showing you how it shows up on the side of Gmail, just since that's what I usually use. So if I'm in my Gmail account, I have an email open. It's this little icon here that will open up a little panel all within Gmail so that I can think about my tasks while also reading my email. you'll see that I can also tell it to move this email into a task if I wanted to follow up on reading about this state park later. I didn't want to forget about it. That would be a way to put it in my list with just one click. But here you'll see, if we just focus on the side panel, that it starts with this default list, which it gives you automatically. And I've put in some daily tasks here. So I added a task. I thought I should eat breakfast every day. This little repeating arrows means it's going to happen every day. This one doesn't have a repeating or a date set, brushing teeth. That's not a reflection of how often I brush teeth. I just was goofing around with the settings. This one, go to work, I gave it a date and a specific time. And then I added another task that has some subtasks here to exercise. Let's see. And let's move next to what it looks like in the app. So in my default list, which is what they called it, you could rename that if you didn't like it, I have the email that I added. So that's that from the state park email. And then there's my breakfast and brushing my teeth. And if I scroll down, I would see my other things. And so I added some Thanksgiving planning in here. And my little subtasks are indented about Thanksgiving. By contrast, I made a separate list altogether for Christmas. And I think it wasn't obvious in the app how to switch between the lists. You have to click on the little menu icon here and then choose the list that you want, and then it shows up. I think on the web browser version, this drop down is a little more obvious to switch between lists. That might just be me. But here I am, I made the separate list. So this one has my title, it has the things that I'm thinking about. Decide about whether it's in person or not was the task itself. And then this was just a little note that I added. If I tapped on this, it would open up space for me to add all those details. This one, I was able to add some subtasks as a checklist. And then for mailing presents, I gave myself sort of a deadline for that to be safe. So by comparison, my Thanksgiving section and this are pretty similar. So you could either keep everything in one giant list, if that's the way your brain liked it to be, or you could break up and have lots of separate little lists for your tasks. It is easy to reorder things in this by holding and dragging them, so that's no problem. So I would say Google Tasks is pretty bare bones, but that might appeal to you, especially if you're already using Google products. You might like to try tasks. If we come back to the grid, there isn't really collaboration in this as far as I could tell. No images, no color coding. There are deadlines and dates you can set, and I didn't come across any features that you had to pay for. So you can feel free that you're using the entirety of tasks capabilities. Okay, my last one is Google Keep. So this can be used a few different ways. It is an app available for Android, iOS, Chrome, or as a Chrome browser extension. It can also be used in the Gmail side panel. Here's the little icon that you would find at the side of your email if you use Gmail to open it up as a panel within your screen. And then you can also use Google Keep on any web browser by going to keep.google.com. So here it is on the side of my Gmail window. You'll see that I have a few little categories that you can see. This one with the photo is this idea I have for a painting I might do for my mom of the farm she grew up on. It's sort of an abstract painting. And so I've got that title and I've got some checklist things that I might have to do to accomplish it. Below that, you can see I've got my grocery list. I was able to choose this background color from a selection of maybe a dozen colors. And then I've got a little quote. I also chose that background color. Let's show you a slightly better view. So here's the view if you are going to the website in its own browser tab at keep.google.com. And then here's the view from the app on my phone. Let's see. So you'll see that my grocery list, I made some subcategories, and that was easy to do by typing them all in my checklist, and then you can indent by grabbing them and shifting them over slightly. So there might be a little bit of a learning curve as you learn how to move things a little bit on this one, but it was pretty intuitive. And let's see. I've got my quote. And then I read that there is a limit of 19,999 characters per item in here. So that's pretty generous. So overall, an item that you put in Keep could range from a lot of different things. It could be an essay that you're writing all the way down to just a photo with checklists and all kinds of other things in between. Speaking of photos, an interesting feature that this offers is you can add, so you can either start typing in to create a new note. This allows you to start creating a checklist, or you can add an image as the starting point. And there's an option once you've added an image that it can use OCR, or optical character recognition, to pull the text out of that image. So I tested that 2 different ways. I added this picture of an upcoming class that I'm doing, and it perfectly interpreted that it says learn a language. I also had another screenshot just from text on the internet, and it didn't have any errors in that either. It was very nice. It's supposed to be able to maybe also do it for handwriting. You would want to test whether your handwriting is suitable for that, but you could give that a try. And then there are some other features in Google Keep that I haven't looked into that closely, but they include labels. You can also use hashtags in here, and then search by your hashtag or by labels for things that match categories or whatever. You can set dates and reminders, and it has a sort of interesting language for this. It'll say, like, if your time has come for something, it'll say that it's fired. So in my mind, that's sort of like the arrow has been fired, maybe, and the task has come due or assigned. And you can also try to set things up so that your home screen is pretty much blank by archiving what you've put in there. Like, you might apply a label to this, like as an art project label, and then archive it. And if I set a due date for it, then when my due date came around, it would pop back up on my home screen as a signal to me that I need to be working on it. So that's interesting if that appeals to you. And then it also is supposed to have location-based reminders as well. Like, you show up near the bank, it'll tell you something that you reminded yourself about that you needed to do at the bank. So that is Google Keep. And coming back to the table on this one, collaboration, yes, you can get other people involved in a specific part of your Keep. Images, yes, it's very image friendly. Color coding, yeah, and it's nice that the whole background changes the color instead of just a little dot or something. So if you are visually oriented, you might like scrolling through your page and seeing all of the light blue things or all of the brown things at once. Deadlines, yes, I just explained that. And then paid features, I did not come across any special paid features in this one either, so you can use it freely. And then this is my check mark to show that I made it through with a few minutes to spare. So I will stop sharing my screen for now. And I would love to hear if you have any questions about those things. And then I also jotted down from a few different sources some best practices for how to be successful with your to-do lists that I can run through if we get through questions. So I'm gonna take a breath and let me know what you want to know or what you think. Did any of those sound appealing to you? If we were in person, I would have loved to start by asking if anyone already used anything like this or has tried anything similar in the past. If you have any tips to share with each other, that sounds awesome. Anything is fine.
This is Connie. I used Google, but I had not even looked at tasks. So I'm going to definitely do that. If I can keep everything kind of together with things that function similarly, that's wonderful.
Yeah. If you're already opening something up in the course of a day, then it won't take too much extra to click that extra icon. That's right. Any other comments or questions?
I'd say I found this very useful. I had a grocery list program that I liked before, and then it quit collaborating, and I couldn't get it to collaborate again, and which made it a lot less functional in a two-shopper household. So I'm gonna check a couple of these out and see if that'll help. So
Okay.
greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Phyllis, did you unmute yourself to make a comment, or was that an accident?
Oh, I think I'm unmuted in case
That's
I
all right.
want to make a comment. I'll tell you the truth, it's a little over my head. I think I'm sticking to pencil and paper.
I think that that's fine. And
Yeah.
even some of the people that I talked to said they'll use the app for some things, but other times they'll still just want a paper. So like on a certain, like on a Saturday, maybe it's a paper kind of a day, but for the rest of the week, you store everything in the cloud on the phone so you don't have to worry about it. I think combining things or going one way or the other is fine.
Yeah.
I use something called a simple shopping list. That's the app. It's called Simple Shopping List. And I'm a single household, so I don't know if it collaborates or not, but it's very, very simple. It serves my purpose. I have a grocery list, I have a task list, and I have a project list within here. So it does do that. But I just happened upon it and kind of taught myself, so that's how simple it is.
That's great.
It's called Simple Shopping List.
All right. Any other apps that I did not talk about that anyone wants to recommend? Because there are so many out there, and I just kind of ended up using my gut for which ones to share. Everything that I shared with you has good reviews, or someone mentioned it to me that it was useful, but that doesn't mean it's comprehensive. I'm sure there are others. While you think about whether you want to share something, let me just run through these best practices before we go much over time. So these are just collected from different places. Even if you're not going to get one of these apps, some of them will still help you. So experts say that you should add an idea to your list ASAP. Get it out of your head, get it into your workflow. You can use your to-do list as an evaluation tool. You can look back and compare what you're actually doing to your priorities or your values and how you thought you were spending your time. Could be that you're spending all of your time on something that, if you thought about it, doesn't really matter to you as much as other things. They recommend not setting yourself up for failure. So revisit at the start of a day what you have planned and then make sure it's a manageable amount. That's just good life advice, probably. You could try to develop your own shorthand if it was helpful. Some of those, the list item might be more than one line or just one line. And if that bothered you and you wanted them to all just be succinct in one line, you could come up with your own shorthand to make it easily scannable. Another thing I found said that you could apply emoji or icons with information about each task, such as whether it's a phone call or related to healthcare. And this is similar to what I do when I do paper lists. I will make my list of things I should do. I'll draw a sun next to the ones that require going somewhere outside. I'll draw a house next to ones that are things to do at home, a little shopping bag for anything that requires, you know, going out to a store, things like that. So you could replicate that kind of thing either with the color coding, or you could get some emoji that you like for that. I didn't harp on this very hard, but a lot of them have priority ratings or stars that you can add to highlight things. So about half of those that I showed you have that feature that you might like. And then finally, you might want to just think about, do you want to see your finished tasks with a check mark or a cross through, or is it better for your brain to have them disappear so that you only see what's left? And most of these apps let you choose, which is really nice. They recognize there's different types of brains out there and different ways to be efficient. So I will open the floor once more to any comments or questions. Anyone feeling invigorated and getting themselves pulled together, or is anybody ready to throw up their hands and not worry about being efficient?
I think the best thing for me is the fact that I see what's out there. And I know more now than I did before, but I don't know what applies to me in a practical sense.
Well, it is interesting just to think that there are thousands and thousands of people using these for their ordinary days, that this is how some people enjoy organizing their lives. And so you can certainly get by without it, but it's useful to know that it's an option.
Now, this is all for your phone?
Yeah, so some of them you wouldn't have to put on a smartphone. So the Google ones you could use just on a web browser. The two that were really for businesses, Asana and Trello, those wouldn't have to be in the app. You could do those on a website. And I think that there's either Todoist or AnyList that you could do. No, Remember the Milk was one that you can do on a website too. So you might like that, but I would say the main appeal is that you're carrying it around with you. So unless you like to spend a lot of time at your computer thinking things through, you still would have to jot it down on a piece of paper if you didn't have it on your phone. So if you are so visually oriented that was worth it, then that might be something to try.
What you're saying is it wouldn't be cross devices. If I did it on the computer, it wouldn't be on my iPad or my iPhone?
No, they should sync across. All of these should.
Okay.
But there was someone who emailed me beforehand, who I don't think is here, who said that she just has a flip phone, and is it worth coming to this class? And I said, sort of, but it's not ideal. Really, the benefit is that you're carrying it with you.